Let me ask you something. When is the last time a male figure, hopefully you've got one in your life, your dad, your grandfather, whatever, anybody, actually sat you down and told you what kind of man to be? Not what job to get, not, hey, toughen up, little things like that. Not just kind of saying things in the grand scheme of life that hopefully stuck with you. Now, sometimes it works. I'm a prime example of that. A name is what you make it. Make your own way. I mean, actually told you, like, hey, here's what it looks like to show up. Here's what their most important things are in life. Here's what it looks like to carry something hard without falling apart, to feel something without passing that along or taking it out on spouse, kids, things like that. Yeah, me neither. I mean, not really. And I'm not mad about that, but I thought it would be an interesting thing to dive into. And I think the silence, that gap, is exactly why the modern man, so many guys right now, are lost, they're angry, they're just running on empty, and they don't totally know why. So let's get into it. All right, a lot of this is kind of carryover from some stuff that we discussed last week and how I was kind of, I was just in a bad spot. And not only did I talk to you and have a full-blown therapy session on episode 20, which we're on episode 21 now, which is kind of hard to believe. I also, talk with my wife, talk with some other people, and I just kind of doing it on my own and letting it out and then posting it kind of gave me clarity. It let me kind of get all my thoughts together in one place. Hopefully it wasn't too jumbled and wasn't terrible. And hopefully, like I said, it helps somebody, help one person. I know it helped me a lot because the rest of that day was much better. I kind of got out of my fog, out of my funk, and then I had a deep conversation with my wife, and we had a lot to cover. And her and I communicated well on that. And maybe that's something her and I can come on here and not really discuss in full detail the things that her and I discussed, but how we've kind of problem solved and worked through some of the things that I was holding back from her. Because I've come to the realization that if you have a strong partner, you really need to lean on them. If you go back to one of my other episodes where I talk about how asking for help almost feels like, I don't know, it just feels like it's a burden. It's like a traumatic experience for me, I think is what I said. But we covered quite a lot of bit about that and just kind of the overall feeling of everything. And I think a lot of that is going to be kind of a continuation, but I tried to really dig deep. So I've got a lot of notes that I've come up with. Typically, I don't do a lot of notes, but I wanted to kind of make sure I get my thoughts in order. And I think the first one was something that my wife said when her and I were discussing things. We were talking about job and how your job is not your identity, which, by the way, if my current boss sees this, yes, I'm recording in my office, which you were so kindly to let me have and use, but I promise it's not during working time. I'm separating working time. It's after working time, but it was a good space to use it. I've already got the microphone set up, so hopefully you won't fire me, because that would really suck, because I kind of enjoy working here right now. Which, shout out AirApply in Salem and Flora. Aerial application, if you're a farmer in the area and you want to get involved in drone application, because a lot of times those sprayers with those 150-foot booms, it's a little bit heavy machinery. And, around here, a lot of rain in the forecast, especially in the springtime, so it can kind of be hard. You can kind of be out of work and need field sprayed. So this drone application thing is becoming quite an interesting thing for me to dive into. And so shout out AirApply. Maybe they'll sponsor one of these podcasts and we'll talk more about that. But if you're a farmer or a farm services or a co-op of some sort, get a hold of me. Sales and marketing is what I'm doing now. I guess I'm officially announcing that. Anyway, job. We were talking about how the job doesn't define you. It's like an identity trap. So for a long time, it did define a lot of men. The modern man today, though, has to have multiple jobs. It kind of almost has turned into what, for a long time, women had to do. A woman had to do. Except their job was all about, raising kids and keeping the house. And now a lot of women have that job, but also they have other jobs or side hustles and things that they do, or they have a full-time job and they have to do those things too. Now a lot of that is being passed on to a man or alongside, and it's like you're doing it together. And the modern man, I feel like, has to learn how to do multiple things, even though you are maybe the provider or the sole provider or, quote unquote breadwinner. You have to learn how to provide in different ways too than our dads didn't, our grandfathers didn't, and our great grandfathers sure as shit didn't have to do. I mean, it was your job was your identity because you were providing the paycheck, and then you got to pretty much do whatever you wanted after that. The only stipulation was you just, don't beat your wife and be nice to your kids and stuff like. I mean, that's what you had to do. And a lot of people did it and they got away with it. But that was kind of shorthand for worth back in the day. But I feel like in 2026, it's like it's less of your identity. You're just becoming, it's just a piece of it. It's how you make your money. It's how you pay for the bills. But maybe if you're a business owner, that's a little bit different. Or maybe if your job is your identity or your personality, which this is not my job, but this is something that I do. It's kind of a passion project, and we talk about it all the time. Hopefully someday it helps bring in some sort of providing or some money. But if not, it's not for that. It was a way to fill that creative void. And you also have to, outside of the job, learn how to provide in other ways, emotionally. I talked about it 2 or 3 episodes ago. You have to, especially as a girl dad, you have to talk to your daughter. Because if you want her to trust you and you want her to come to you in the future, then you talk to her early and often. You learn who she is. You learn how she is. I have learned more about my 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old daughter, not only from the 2 or 3 podcasts that we've done together, but just because I've opened up my mind of like, I have to learn who she is. I have to really study how she is. I have to study her feelings because, yes, men have feelings and we have things that we have to work on and we have to keep an eye on. And those things shouldn't be put to the side. But the complexity of a female, and this is biological, a female's emotions can be totally different and her needs can be totally different. And so that's something that, as a girl dad, I always say that because she was my firstborn, she is going to make me a better father in the long run because of it. So the job is not an identity trap, and it shouldn't be your whole personality, because you can be multiple things. You don't really want to be multiple personalities, but you want to have multiple ways of providing, not just through your job and through money, which kind of leads me to the provider part, how it means more than, a paycheck. Do you know your children? Do you know your wife or your significant other? Can you repair relationships after conflict? Can you regulate yourself enough to be safe around? Because how many times have we kind of flown off the handle? And if you're not self-aware of what you're doing, do you not feel the emotions of the room and your household change after you lose your temper? Not because you did anything physically or anything, but like you lost your temper, you went off for a second. If you're considered kind of the head of the household, whether you're a woman or a man, maybe your wife is the head of the household, which a lot of guys will always say, that's the boss over there, which is very true, but there's a different dynamic to what you bring to your household. But how many times have you felt the room shift and the mood change because of what you did and your reactions or interactions with your wife and kids or your family in general? I feel it sometimes. I'll finally be fed up with all the laundry laying around, or I'll finally be fed up with, the dishes laying around, just something like that. And I'll just be like, we always got this going on. And I'm just kind of going off about it. And yeah, maybe afterwards I feel better, but then there's a shift in the house. And then there's that feeling of, oh boy, let's make sure that we tighten things up. And it's okay to address these things, but it's just, it all goes about it. It's all about how you say it. It's like I always talk to my wife. We talk about, it's not what you said, it's how you said it that made me feel this way. We talked a lot about that whenever we had a discussion. So it's like this whole dynamic of being a provider, but also having to provide. You got to be a sounding board. You've got to be emotional support. There's more in 2026 for the man to be other than just the provider. And that can be tough for a lot of you. There's a lot of dudes out there that don't really get down with, emotions and things like that because that's just how they were raised. But I can promise you, whether you have a boy or a girl, a daughter or a son, feeling emotions and relating to your kids' emotions, because at a young age they don't know how to regulate it. Even my 6-year-old daughter at times kind of goes like this, up and down, will not only make you a better parent, but it'll also help you regulate your own emotions. It'll also help you steer them clear of these big blow-ups or anything worsening them in the future. Because you got to think about it. Everything that we're doing today for these kids is just to make them better for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I know whenever we play softball in the front yard with my daughter, whether we have a good practice session or not, that's preparing her for the practice that she's going to have on the field and then the game that's coming up. Same thing in life. It's like she flies off the handle or my son flies off the handle. And at times, every moment calls for something different. Sometimes it's discipline. Sometimes it's getting down on his level and being like, come here, buddy. Like you can just tell there's something not quite, he's throwing a fit and it's just not, there's something quite off about him. And I've learned that not every instance is the same, but there's a lot of times where when he's flying off the handle, I'm like, come here, buddy. Come here. It's okay. And you kind of ease him into it. And then even though he's 2, almost 3, these kids are a lot smarter than you think. I mean, they'll understand whenever you're like, look, you are mad. You have to use different language with him than I can use with my 6-year-old, but you have to not dumb it down, but you have to get down to what his vocabulary is because he knows X amount of words. He's still learning. But I think that's the unheard or underdeveloped key to being a good dad and being a modern man is not only understanding and regulating your own emotions, but understanding how all the things your kids and your wife are going through. And even though there's this nature and natural feeling to be like, toughen up, you're fine. And it's okay to have that in certain instances. But I feel like you always have to go back. Once you've toughened up, once you've got through what you need to get through, once you've done the hard thing, you have to go back and be like, man, that was rough. And I was scared. I was nervous. I was sad. I was pissed off. I was all the things. So being able to go back and regulate even after the fact is another thing. We're very complex creatures these days. It's a little bit frustrating to have to be this complex and not just be like, I go to work, I make X amount of dollars, and I pay for all this stuff, and I'm good to go. It's like, well, that's fine until your wife decides that that's not enough. It's like, what, you want to lose her? You want to go through all that too? It's like, you can't do that. You have to change. You have to adapt, adjust, overcome. Great coach in high school. Coach Shirley, shout out. Adapt, adjust, overcome. So adjusting and it's like a fix-it mentality. That was kind of the next thing I had. Fix-it mentality versus the modern world. I find this a lot of times whenever I'm talking to my wife. She'll be going off about something, whether it's about me or about work or whatever it may be. And she'll be going and a couple times I'll kind of chime in, and then I'll look at her and go, okay, hold on. Before you go again, I've chimed in twice, and you've not really said anything back. Would you like me to listen, or would you like me to fix? Because I think men in general, and maybe women too, I'm sure it's a personality thing, we kind of want to fix. A lot of dudes. They were just built about, hey, I'm the guy that can fix it. I can solve it. What's the Holes? The guy who played on The West Wing. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Anyway, I think his name's like Charlie in the movie of Holes, and he's like, I can fix that. That's what I think about all the time. It's like, my wife's mad because the house is not clean. All right, neither one of us have had time to clean the house, but maybe she just wants to be like, this house is not clean. I just want to get it out into the open that, hey, at some point you and I have to get together and get this house clean. But I immediately am like, all right, I'll take out the trash, do the I'm boom, into fix-it mode. At times that's okay, but it's like, how do we establish the routines ahead of time to make sure that the house doesn't get so far out of whack? Whenever your organized chaos becomes disorganized, then you've got a problem. So the fix-it mentality in the modern world, but there's no single problem and there's no single solution. It's too many tabs open in everybody's brain, too many things to fix. Everyone wants you to be calm, but not everything's an emergency. But you need to jump ahead on this sort of thing. You need to get out in front of it. It's all these things that you're feeling. But I think if you, again, regulate what you got coming in, you digest it, you download it, close a couple of them tabs and be like, all right, what do I need to do right now? Tell my wife all the time, I'm like, one thing at a time. You can only do one thing at a time. We argue about this. We don't really argue, but we'll want to watch a show, and we'll start watching the show, and immediately she's on it. Or she's like doing something. And I'm like, you're not watching. Do you not want to watch this? She's like, oh, I'm watching. I'm like, no. Literally, scientifically proven, your brain cannot do two things at once. That's her personality. That's kind of how she operates. And it's not always that case. Sometimes she'll be like, all right, I'm in. Let's get into it. You're right. Let's go out, But that's true for a lot of things. Not just household stuff, chores, one thing at a time. Not everything is an emergency. Regulate what you got going on and focus on one thing at a time. Get the one task done. I always start in the corner of one room whenever I'm cleaning the house. All right, I'm going to go to the kitchen. I'm going to start in the microwave. And I'm going to work my way from the corner of the microwave all the way around to the kitchen. Anything that doesn't belong in the kitchen goes to the dining room or dining area where the kitchen table is all it is. We don't have a dining room. And then we move to the table, clean the table off. Anything doesn't belong, cable goes in the living room. Living room gets, you kind of work your way out that way. But I think the biggest thing, and it's the thing that I'm realizing more now, this might be the biggest takeaway from the whole deal. The internet and social media is selling everybody, but men in particular, a bad deal. It's a snake oil salesman type thing. These digital platforms, they are embedded in our everyday life. Our algorithms are pulling us in multiple directions, telling us we have to be this, but we have to be that. We have misinformation. We have misogynist content, as they like to say. But then there's also, some of that is not how I'm going to be. Like some of those guys, I'm like, you talk like you might beat your wife on the side. Like that's not okay. Like the way you talk, I feel like you have either hit women before or you are currently hitting women. And you were probably like either bullied or maybe you were a bully in high school, but you found an audience that actually wants to listen to you. And like you have to be able to separate what that is, especially on social media and the internet. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I sure shit don't beat women. I don't bully people. And I've gotten better over the years about being way more understanding, way more calm. And honestly, I've been trying to be more of like a leader. I've been trying to move more like a leader, not only for my own family, but just when people come in contact with me, I want them to walk away and be like, he's got some things going for him. He's a confident dude. He knows what he's doing. He's moving the right way. So I think there's this whole internet and social media thing. And the algorithm is also, it's a lot like your brain. We talked about that in another episode where your brain is always trying to fight or flight. It's always either trying to destroy you or save you. And there's really no in between. And once you realize that your brain is either trying to destroy you or save you, you can kind of regulate yourself a little bit better and move through life a little bit differently. Your algorithm is the same way. If you go to my algorithm right now on TikTok, I guarantee in 10 videos, 2 to 4 of them will be about trusting God and surrendering yourself to His will and His purpose and all these other things. Another 2 to 4 will be that the job market is terrible and that you're never going to get a job, but you should always be looking. And sometimes the best jobs are this. And like, why aren't you in this field? You should do this job. And it's just like the whole job market thing is huge. And then also, how many is that left? That's 8, 2 to 4 videos there of the current state of things, not necessarily just political, but also how it's like everything's too expensive. Everybody's making the most money they've ever made, but they can't spend it and they can't afford anything. The world's going to shit. It's all these things. It's always doom and gloom. So I've got one end of the spectrum, constantly hope, pray, give yourself up. Your will is not the will of the Lord and all these other things, to the other end of the spectrum where we're all going to die and everything sucks and our pets' heads are falling off and all those sort of things. So imagine being force-fed that all the time in social media and online, and then also feeling down about yourself because it's like, man, I'm not making enough money. We got this bill due. I got this credit card thing going on. Like, my car's messed up. My wife's car needs this. It's like, imagine being force-fed that, or going through the emotion range of everything sucks and it's terrible and you're going to die and you can't get a job and you suck at life, to why don't you just surrender your entire will to your faith, and why are you trying so hard? You just got to do this, to you're not doing enough. And you just go back and forth all the time, not only in your own head, but your own heart and your own gut. And then you see it on social media. It's like, what, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of that for women too, but I'm speaking from my perspective. How do you get out of bed in the morning? How do you want to do anything in general, let alone try to provide for 1 to 3 to 5 people? How many people are in your family that you're providing for, including yourself? There's not enough hours in the day. I woke up early today, helped get the kids ready, got the kids to school, went to work. When I leave here, I'm going to pick kids up. Got to get them ready for whatever sport we got going on. Probably got to find a way to feed them, get them home. At some point, I got to find a way to exercise and all that, don't I? Because you got to exercise every day. Not drinking enough water. But I got to find a way to make money, and I also got to have a side hustle because I'm not making enough money in general. So that's where it's like this pull and tug all the time, at least from a man's perspective in a man's life and what he feels like. But I will say, and I talked to my wife about this right here. I wasn't making light of the fact that my algorithm is showing me to surrender what I want for what the will of my life or my purpose is that's already laid out for me. You definitely, once you realize that your purpose is already laid out and you just got to follow the steps and the signs and everything that's in front of you is meant to be there, it makes going through life a lot easier. And then whenever you start questioning that, that's whenever you have a lot of issues. And once you realize that every obstacle or everything in front of you is no longer, there's no coincidences, but there's also, it's all just learning experiences. We've talked about that hundreds of times on this show. There's no coincidences. Everything is an opportunity or a learning experience. Whether you choose to take it or learn from it is totally up to you. And I think I started realizing that whenever I got fired, but it took me a long time to realize, like, okay, this is not a negative. It's just not what I thought it would be. And that's where I went wrong, is I thought it would be something instead of just dealing with it as an opportunity in front of me and in the moment. So that's kind of where there's this quiet return of strength. This is another thing I talked with my wife about the other day. I cannot have conversations with people whenever they want to talk about getting into arguments or fighting other people, just things like that. And working in the bar industry, sometimes you hear a lot of that, or you get around guys and they kind of start talking. I just don't ever feel like those conversations are worth anybody's time. Her and I were talking about something. I don't remember exactly, but I said, I always just want to kind of be, I don't want to be the loudest voice in the room. I want to be this quiet strength, very John Wayne-like, which is why I really like this hat. If you grew up on John Wayne, you knew he didn't walk into a lot of these rooms unless he had to and start swinging whatever around, swinging his dick around, swinging his gun around, making himself the biggest, baddest badass in the room. He would kind of come in with like a quiet strength, unless he had to enter the room a certain way. But I think in general, the quiet man is a perfect example. He was the biggest, baddest dude in every single room he ever went into, but he never felt the need to show that off. And people don't test you for that, I feel like. I feel like if you are that type of person, you don't get tested. People don't try you, and you don't want them to, and then you get along with everybody. So over my 33 years on this earth, I feel like I've always kind of been in the middle of a lot of things because I typically get along with everybody. But I don't necessarily, and this is something else I've talked about before, I get along with everybody, and I would say I've got a lot of people who are friends, but I don't necessarily have, nobody's blowing up my phone constantly. Not nobody, but not a lot of people are blowing up my phone. I would consider myself to have a lot of friends, but I don't do a lot of things with other people. And I hope that makes sense. And I'm not attacking anybody. Like, I don't expect my phone to be blowing up every day. Like, hey, you want to go do this? You want to go play golf? You want to go hang out? I don't expect that. We all got their own lives. But I'm just saying, I get along with everybody. I think a lot of people enjoy having me around. But because I'm kind of this quiet, just go about my business, you ask me my opinion, I'll give it. And I feel like I give good advice. Or I'm this kind of quiet type of strength in a room, or to other people, and hopefully on this, or to you if you're watching and listening. I feel like because of that, I just kind of move through life at a different pace. And maybe that's part of my problem. Maybe part of my problem is I move through life under this quiet strength, but I tend to want a little bit more recognition for what I'm doing. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people would like some more recognition. A man especially. I tell my wife this all the time. You don't realize the power that you hold just by telling me that I'm doing a good job. You don't realize the power you yield just by being proud of me, or being like, hey, I saw that you, I saw that you, like, our son was getting upset, and you got on his level and you talked him through it. You gave him a hug, and that was really nice. That I appreciate you regulating what you got going on right now, and I know you're going through a lot and your brain's all over the place, but I appreciate that. That gets me a whole new. I could go run a marathon. Well, maybe not that far, but you know what I mean. Like that. If you have a strong partner, especially a strong woman in your life, or if you are the strong woman, or if you're just the partner, or you're the woman, you're the wife, maybe you're just now finding this out, but the power you wield in complimenting or noticing your husband or your significant other, it's unreal. So make sure that you try to do that a lot. It goes the same way. Here's the flip side of that coin. If we don't notice whenever she changes her hairstyle, gets it cut, or she's been going through a lot at work, but then she comes home one day, she's much happier, or she's going through a lot at work and you don't do anything to make her feel better away from work. So now she doesn't feel good at work, but then she comes home and she doesn't feel much better either. And then she's got all the responsibilities of home. It goes the same way. It goes both ways. But I feel like socially, everybody knows that you have to do that sort of thing, especially for your wife or your significant other. Everybody knows that you have to be like doing extra at times. And complimenting is a big deal, you know. But I think sometimes we forget that maybe we're all a little bit more soft, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. So we need those compliments too. We need to be told that we're doing a good job because we're trying. We're trying our best. And I think the struggle that we go through as men can be tough. And it's not just from your significant other, from your wife that you need to hear it from. You need to hear it from your boys too. You need to start putting guys around you that can kind of help you through stuff. I had a long conversation with my brother the other day about some stuff going on in my life, and him just listening and talking to me was huge. I needed a dude who understood kind of what I was going through to listen to me and kind of let me go off a little bit. Went and played golf with a buddy the other day. He's going through some stuff, and I didn't give him any advice. I just sat there and kind of listened to him. That's tough. I said, but you got the ability to bounce back. Just something simple like that. It doesn't have to be all this whole big. You don't have to come up with the perfect words. Sometimes just being there and listening and then complimenting them and recognizing what they're doing is such a big deal. And I think that kind of brings me to the final point here. I don't know if I've ever had a conversation, kind of what I said at the beginning. I don't know if I've ever had a conversation of hey, this is how you have to be. This is what you need to do. But I was taught by example. I have no issue sitting here saying that maybe I didn't have long, drawn-out talks and have discussions about what I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to do, but I know my grandfather and my dad and my brother, my brothers, everybody leads by example. That's what I've learned over the years. So things that have stuck with me are the two big pillars that I built the whole channel and the whole brand off of. A name is what you make it, and you have to go out there and make your own way. A name is what you make it, make your own way. It was important to my grandfather to understand that your name is like Scarface. All you have in this world is your name and your balls, and you don't break them for nobody. For him, it was a lot of that way. Name is what you make it. That name is important. The Linder name is important. So don't do anything to fuck it up. Be the type of person that, oh yeah, he's good people. Those are good people over there. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for. And I think that was passed through, which is a good thing to have. But then I think also when I think about the phrase make your own way, it doesn't have to be the old school way of what we talked about. You're the sole provider and all you do is make the money and that's the end of it. It can be that way, but you can also do it in your own way. You don't have to go out and get an 80-hour-a-week job, to do that. You make your own way through this life by providing financially, emotionally, physically, all those things. But you have to do it in your own way, in ways that are going to make you a better provider, a better husband, a better dad, and the way that makes you feel like you're actually accomplishing something and you're not just killing yourself just to make it work for your family. There has to be a hint of that. You have to be like, I'm going to go do this whether I really, really want to or not. My ideal job would not be necessarily what I'm doing, but I enjoy it enough, or I know that it's going to provide enough to where I'm not going to be miserable and I'm not going to have to take it out on my family. If you're in that position where you're miserable, even if you're making money, you got to find a way to do something different to still provide, but also not make yourself miserable, because not only are you making yourself miserable in that role, but you're going to make yourself and your whole family miserable the rest of the time. And I know that's easy to say for a lot of people, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. So make your own way. A name is what you make it. And I think just learn how to be a little bit more multifaceted. It's tough. And if there's anybody out there that needs somebody to talk to about this sort of thing, not only am I around, and a lot of people, I don't have that many people that watch or listen, so I'm sure I've got plenty of people that know who I am and probably have my cell phone number. Or if it's not me and you don't feel comfortable because maybe you don't know me, find you a church group. Even if you're not religious, we talk about this all the time. You have to put your faith in some sort of higher power. Whether you believe in the good word or not, Whether you believe in faith or whether you believe in just the universe, whatever it is, you have to put your faith into some sort of higher power or some sort of, you have to speak things into existence. And you can't necessarily do that on your own. So even if you're not a faith person, go to a group, a church group, a men's group, and be like, look, I'm not really like a religious type cat, but you all are dudes, and you all understand, the struggles of life. So let's talk about that, and maybe we don't necessarily weed in, readings and teachings. And they'll do it. I guarantee you find the right place, they'll do it. They'll find a way to talk to you on your level and the way that you want to be talked to without being preached at. That's what I would do. If you came to me and said that, that's what I would do. I'd be like, look, this is what I would do. This is how I kind of get centered, and this is how I kind of deal with things. I kind of lean on the book, but I also understand that not everybody's that way, and I feel like you've got to put your faith in some sort of higher power, no matter what that is, whether it's the universe or something else. You got to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy. That's all we got. Hopefully it wasn't too preachy. Hopefully it all made sense for you. And, compared to last week, we're in a much better spot. And if you need drone application, hit me up. Go out there, live your best life, because you only get one life to live, so you might as well make it your own way, because in the end, all you have is your name to give and leave on, and a name is what you make it. Thanks for watching. As my daughter says, like and subscribe.